Welcome to the Candle Business Coach podcast. I'm your host, Kirsty Allen, and I am the Candle Business Coach. I'm also a mum of three and a kindness advocator. This podcast is all about making and selling candles, business development, and mindset, delivered to you with advice, inspiration, and motivation in a new episode every Friday. Are you a candle maker looking for support, strategy, and a like-minded community? Then you need to check out the Candle Makers Collective. The Candle Makers Collective is my exclusive membership where you get weekly live group coaching, expert guidance, and a supportive network of fellow candle makers so you never feel stuck or alone in your business. There's also an ever-growing library of helpful resources, including ebooks, social media guides, templates, and more. So if you're looking to take your business to the next level and learn more about the membership for candle makers, click the link in the show notes for the Candle Makers Collective. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. Tonight we have a Candle Maker Connections episode all about expanding your range beyond candles. So we're talking about wax melts, reed diffusers, hanging diffusers, room sprays, all the things. And this episode is to give you a perspective of why you would want to expand your range as opposed to sticking just with candles. So to welcome the candle makers that are with us tonight, we've got the beautiful Sue, we've got Gina, and we've got George. So do you want to say hello, everyone?
Hello.
Hello.
Now, for those that may not have listened to our other Candle Maker Connections episodes and they might not know who you guys are, do you want to introduce yourselves and give a little bit of backstory on your business?
I'm Sue. I have Revamped Treasure Candles. I live in a small sort of rural town and I have been selling at the market since 2017.
And I'm Gina.
I'm George.
We are from Areti Naturals. We are Sydney-based and we launched our business in December 2023.
We've got some good perspectives and some good knowledge to share with everyone tonight. So let's start off with the basics. What was your original decision, if you can think back, as to why you would bring in other products? Because but most candle makers start with just candles and then they reach a point where their customers might be asking for more products or they might feel that their creativity wants to expand in a different direction. So what were you thinking when you decided to expand?
So I think for us, our first product that we launched after the candles was wax melts, and we didn't do the entire range, so we only did a few because we bought 100 clamshells to see how it would go. So it was, okay, let's do the top fragrances and test the waters, test and see if there's a want for our wax melts. And yeah, that's where it began from there. That was the first. It's all about test and measure for us.
Yeah, it was a bit of a double to start off with, and it progressed from there. Now we've got every fragrance in our range with wax melts. I think they've definitely played their part in our sales over the last year or so that we've had them in the range. I think we've probably sold up to thereabouts of 2,000 of the wax melts alone.
And that's the actual packs of wax melts, not can the individual ones, yeah?
No, not individual. It's a 100-gram clamshell.
Correct.
And what about you, Sue?
I started thinking about other products other than the candles when I started getting the feedback at the markets with, I don't like a flame. So then I had a look at what else I could do. And yes, I started the wax melts with the little tea light burners. But I think for me, the biggest turnaround in adding a product, the most successful product I've added has been the reed diffusers. I just can't believe what a difference that has made to my sales at market. So when somebody doesn't like a candle or they want the house to smell nice when they're not at home, they're the first two things I suggest, the reed diffusers or the soy melts.
Was it a matter of choosing the scents, for you, Sue? Did you choose your products and have them in every scent available, or did you just choose a few like Gina and George?
I have only a few in the reed diffusers. So in those, I always test them at home first to see what it smells like, because my favourite scent in the reed diffusers smelt terrible. Well, it didn't smell terrible. I thought it smelt a little bit like, it sounds terrible, turning fruit. You know, you've got a bowl of fruit, you get that real, and so my favourite smell, I didn't like it in the reed diffusers. So it's not in the reed diffusers. I still love it in the candles. And with the melts, I'm not particularly regimental with the melts. I make the popular scents. But then if I have a scent, a bottle of fragrance that hasn't been successful, I'll mix it with something else, and then I'll create a melt to get rid of my old stock. So amber, oak and moss, if I don't particularly like that, I'll mix it with a little bit of patchouli and I'll change the name, and then it's a limited edition in the soy melt. So it's a way of getting rid of the old fragrances that aren't selling more.
Can I just say, even if the listeners stop the recording right now, that is the best tip I've heard for moving on old fragrance oils, or not old, but fragrance oils that aren't selling as well, is to mix it with something else and turn it into a wax melt. How clever, limited edition. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. And plus then people have got lots of different melts to pick from every single time. You know, they love, what have you got this time, Sue? Oh, look at this. And I have a new section. And so then particularly if I get a new fragrance in that I want to turn into a candle, I'll test it in the Maxwell. I can't even talk properly. I'll test it in the soy melts first to see if it's popular with people. And once they come back and start asking for it again, then I think, okay, I'm going to turn that into a candle now, or a reed diffuser.
What about you, Gina and George? How have you found the testing process with the different scents in the wax melts?
So for us, we love every single scent. Okay, I'm going to reword that. I love all of our scents apart from one that we have. So it's one particular one, Dragon's Blood. I can't do it, but it's one of our top 10 fragrances. So when we test, we do candles first. Everything that we launch is with a candle first. And then generally at the same time, we'll do wax melts. Then we'll introduce the room spray and the diffuser. So we like to, especially more so the last couple of months, we will do all 4 products at the same time.
It's so interesting hearing the different approaches that you both have with your business, because you're both heavy into markets, which I love, but you're also moving in a strategic manner rather than I'm just going to bring out whatever I like and just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks in a way. So it's interesting hearing the different perspectives, but the choice to expand your product range comes from the market research that you do with your customers. It's not, I want to bring in a new product, so I'm going to bring in a new product. That's where you can find quote unquote failure, because you haven't tested to see whether your customers actually want that product and in that particular scent. Because you can have one scent, but like you've got Gina and George, like you've got 4 different products in that one scent. That's going to attract different customers at different points and different price points as well for those products. So knowing that you've got to do some testing before you officially bring in a product is really quite clever. Why do you think it's important for candle makers to have other products than just candles?
It's variety. So one of my sayings is variety is the spice of life. We all seem to have technical difficulties talking today. Variety is the spice of life aspect. So when you have customers coming out, they're smelling the candles, which is what we started with primarily. You then have them asking if we do it in another way. And the other way became the wax melts. And from there, we progressed into the room sprays. And again, we did a starting range, the top 10 basically. And now it's the entire range is a room spray. So from that, we just started doing reed diffusers in the last 2 or 3 months. And again, it's slowly but surely building the entire range up, and everyone is eventually looking for said fragrance in that particular style, be it a reed diffuser, a room spray, or some people buy all 3 or 4. So, that's just that variety aspect.
And I think like for us, it's different products are popular in the different scents. So, we have one that is our bestseller with our candles and wax melts, and then it's a totally different fragrance for the room sprays and the reed diffusers. So having that variety, like George said, it gives people that option on what they want to get.
Absolutely. What about you, Sue?
I think it also gives them a different price point too. The melts are relatively lesser priced product. They've already got a burner at home. It's a way they can try a scent before they buy the candle. And then generally the room sprays and the reed diffuser are a little bit cheaper than the candles. So then they can try those until they're, oh, my husband loves it. Oh, my daughters hate it. It's a good way of trying something to see how products work in your home.
How soon do you think we should expand our range if we decide to go down that path? Is it new candle makers? Is it people that have been doing it for a year? Does it matter how much time has passed?
How long is a piece of string? How much time do you have to test your product?
That's the big one. How much time do you have to test your products?
Yeah. How much time do you have to test all four or whatever amount of products you want to bring to the market? Testing takes time. Yeah. How long's a piece of string?
What about you, Sue? What do you think?
I think it's a time factor. Like, I spent a lot of time just making candles for a long time until I started hearing the same thing all the time. I don't like something with a flame. So then I decided, okay, I need to bring something else in. And then you've got to put a little bit of time and effort into the testing behind it, and then you bring it in. So absolutely, it's a time thing. I wouldn't rush into, well, myself personally, I wouldn't rush into everything all at once, because I just wanted to be small. So I wanted to be confident and know what I was doing was good. And then I moved on to the next thing.
You save money that way as well by moving slowly and strategically, as opposed to some of the candle makers I speak to, the ones that haven't quite launched, want to bring out every scent in every product, in every range, in every size. And you think, well, I do say to them, you've got time to bring those products in later. Start off with a small range, or smaller than what they're currently thinking, with one product, maybe two sizes. And then as they get to learn their place in the market, they can discover, and their customers will give them feedback as to what they want from that brand or from that candle maker. If you come out with every product all from the start, A, it can be very overwhelming. Well, it is overwhelming for you and your customers. But B, it's way more expensive that way, because you've got to have so much more stock and so much more supplies. So start off smaller than you think. Again, everyone will do it their own way. But if you're watching your pennies, and in today's economy, most of us are, then moving slowly and strategically is going to be better for you in the long run. And then as you bring in new products, you can take your customers and potential customers along the journey with you, as opposed to saying, this is everything I've got, and this is the only products that I will only ever have. And it kind of eliminates that future creativity.
That's so true, Kirsty. We started off exactly like you just said. One product, two sizes. We did a medium or a small and a large candle in 10
10 to 15, I think, fragrances.
10 normal fragrances and 6 natural fragrances. And we just then built on there. We would take on people's feedback, suggestions for different fragrances, and then slowly we introduced that second product, which was the wax melt. And that was after 2 months, 3 months. And then a month later, we introduced another product. And then it took us 9 months to introduce our reed diffusers. So not start small, but start with what you can. Do not feel pressured to add. And just go on.
I was going to say, it also comes back to with how many hands you have involved.
Yeah.
If you're by yourself, you only have limited time, limited availability, limited space. It's going to be a lot more difficult. If you've got extra hands that can help you and you have the space and the product to be able to do it, then it makes life a bit easier.
What are your thoughts, Sue?
I've forgotten the question.
That's okay, because so have I.
Listening to the answer, I'm thinking, I can't remember.
No, there was no question. I was just adding to what you were saying, Kirsty.
We were just chatting, weren't we?
Spot on.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
so funny.
I think we've all lost the plot today a little bit. I am not
Blame it on
editing
Mercury
that out.
retrograde.
I'm not editing that out.
So
So funny. All right, I'll move on to the next question. How do you approach the actual research and development of new products in terms of making them? And then every product has its own testing process. So do you just go through the motions? Do you do research first and then implement? What's your thinking behind the actual research and development of products?
So I don't have as many products as a lot of other candle makers. I only have the candles, the reed diffusers and the melts. I'm thinking about bringing in the room sprays. So for me at the moment with the room sprays, just thinking about it, I've done a little bit of research. I've tried a few different bottles. I've tried a few different bases for the room spray. The first bottle I got, I didn't like, it leaked. And I'm sort of happy with the way it's progressing. I'm actually at the stage now where I'm ready to go onto the Candles Addicts page and say, hey, if I was going to have a room spray, do you want a glass bottle that you can bring back and have refilled? Do you want a plastic bottle that you can still bring back and have refilled but no pressure? And what scents would you like me to start with? So that's where I'm at. So that's going to be the next product I introduce. But I've been looking at this now for probably 6 or 8 months, given some to my daughter to try. So I'm just being really slow. I'm not putting pressure on myself. I don't want to use a plastic bottle. I want to stay with that whole glass refilling style. But if the addicts go, no, we'd like a plastic bottle, Sue, well, then I'll try one of those and maybe have two in the range, a glass one that looks pretty if you leave it out and a plastic one. So I would always do a little bit of research first. I don't set myself a time frame because I'm not under any pressure. And I just research it. Then I talk to the people that will want to buy it.
It's so important that you have your Candle Addicts page and you nurture them and keep them close to the process so that they can be a part of the journey rather than just saying, I've brought out a new product, here it is. That said, you can have success either way. It really depends on what your brand is like, how long you've been in business, how many people are on your email list, and how many people come to see you at markets and all the other factors. But I think what I'm hearing from the three of you tonight is that having a bit of experience behind you gives you a lot more confidence and a lot more knowledge as to how to implement the introduction of new products, as opposed to, again, just I'm bringing out all the products because I want to. And that is what some candle makers have as their mindset, which is not wrong, but then they come back to me 3 months later and said, oh, these products aren't selling, what can I do? And it's like, oh, if only you'd listened the first time. But that's the journey that they have to go on. But what about you, Gina George? What is your approach to research and development?
So similar to Sue, where we'll sit there and we'll research the different aspects of what's involved in that product. We're pretty like-minded when it comes to our packaging. We have similar tastes, which is why everything's kind of just fallen into place when it comes to choosing what we're going to package in. When it was our candle jars, our wax melts, our room sprays, our reed diffusers. When it comes to the product itself, research is so important. So before we chose our wax, it was ours. I had a candle business 10, 11 years ago. So I knew of the suppliers that were around back then. So that was my first point to, go back there. Everything had changed so much in that time that there were all these other suppliers, and we had what's the word I'm looking for? We had a goal with what we wanted our brand to look like, our products to be like, and then it was the research behind that to find what suited that. So that was hours.
Hundreds of hours.
Hundreds of hours. The testing part takes forever, but once you know what you want, it's kind of like working backwards. For us, having that product goal and then doing the research on how you can achieve that.
You're 100% right. And I think what we underestimate across the board is that things are going to take less time than they actually do. Yeah. And when you start to go down the different rabbit holes of research, it can feel really overwhelming, but you need to step back and think, okay, why have I started this journey? What is my end goal with this? And like you say, Gina, work your way backwards from there. What challenges did you guys face when bringing out your new products?
Packaging is always one of them, but we've been lucky in a way that the packaging, for example, we've gone with, as simple as it is working. The clamshells are definitely working without a question of a doubt. Our room sprays and reed diffusers do have their own packaging. The candles, however, we have an option for packaging should people wish to have a gift box. Otherwise, there is no box included for the candles. So that aspect is covered. The jars, like Gina was saying, we had a goal in mind and a likeness in mind for them. And they're as simple but elegant as we could get. And that's been basically working really well. Nobody's asked for different colors or styles, and everyone comes up to the stand and calls it aesthetically pleasing. I mean, when you have a 12-year-old young girl coming up and saying that, that's rather amusing. But at the same time, it's confidence boosting because you know that the younger generation, as well as the olders, all, kind of appreciate the look.
What about you, Sue?
Most likely packaging and labels, because, once you get your head around, how you're going to make your candle, how it burns, how things smell. And again, I go back to how I do it within Revamped Treasures is everything's about recycling, refilling, reusing. And so for the melts, mine, I didn't want to use clamshells because, I didn't want to use the plastic. So I had to work out how I was going to wrap them. And it took me a few times of taking them to market before I was happy with how they travelled to market. So, and same with the candles. I don't do the boxes either. I have lovely little bags. But you get so caught up in making these great products that then you've got to come back to thinking about how you're going to present them and package them. particularly for me because I'm just at market, no online sales.
I think what's really interesting is that when it comes to challenges, you both had, like, all three of you gave the examples of like the physical challenges. There was no mention of the mental challenges of going through that process, which is great. I love that wasn't an impact for you. But
That's a no comment situation.
No comment. When you're in your candle lab or your candle cave, or the place that you're creating your products, you get so obsessed with them, and you think that everyone's going to be as obsessed as you just because you're bringing out another product. But if you haven't done that initial research, not only on the products and how to quote unquote perfect them, but then how to sell them and market them as well, whether it's in person or online, it doesn't matter how incredible your products are, you need to be able to get them in the hands of your customers. So that itself can be a challenge, is just getting people to actually want to try different products from your brand. If you've got, diehard candle fans, they may not want to try a reed diffuser, or they may not want to try a room spray, but then you'll attract other customers that will come in and go, oh, I only like a flameless option, like you said, Sue, and that's where the benefits will come into play. But that's once you've done a couple of markets, or once you've started to get some organic sales, because you're not going to know what's going to sell. And even then, you have a really good inkling of a product that might do well, and then it doesn't. And then one that you think won't do well, and then it does do well. So it's an adventure, isn't it, guys?
Definitely an adventure.
Now, in terms of bringing out the new products outside of candles, do you think that it's best to bring them out as a collection, or maybe around Christmas time, or just a standalone, or does time not matter when you actually launch them?
I know for us this year, I definitely want to get better at introducing collections at specific times. So far, we've just been bringing out products when we get a chance to actually go through the motions of the testing, and then, making the stock and having it ready. We've had a really intense 8 months. So it's just been, we have some new fragrances on the table and let's add them. But that is something that we want to work towards this year, is a winter collection, a spring collection, a Christmas collection, not introducing summer fragrances at the start of February like we did this year. So you know what, though, at the end of the day, it's go with whatever's working for you at the time. It's worked for us so far. Introducing reed diffusers 6 months after we got the packaging and did our testing. Hey, it worked. They're there. So it's whatever works for you.
I'd have to absolutely agree with that. To begin with, when I first started, I would just release new scents as I made them, as I tested them, as I was happy with them. And then as I started listening to a few podcasts, they talked about collections. So I don't do collections as such, but I will have a winter scent or a Christmas scent, a Mother's Day scent. And so if I have that winter scent coming into winter, then I just, come spring, once I've sold out, it doesn't come back again unless somebody asks for it. So, I approach it just a few small additional seasonal scents more than collections. And I just go with the flow. I'm not too stressed about it. Actually, it's funny that Gina said about the summer scent. I have just printed some labels for a vanilla velvet, and it was meant to be a limited summer seasonal scent. And I thought, summer is over. So I changed the little swing tag to say a limited scent, because I thought I'm not going to wait till next summer now that I've tested it. So, you can have an idea, but it doesn't mean you can't pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think pivoting when things are not working, or double downing when things are, is really, it's essential for your business to be sustainability and that longevity. But it's not a failure. It doesn't mean that, you beat yourself up about it because it didn't work exactly how you first initially visioned. So, I love that you said the word pivot. I think that's such an important part of any business, but particularly for the young entrepreneurs out there that haven't had much experience before.
And also, if something sells really well, like I have maybe 2 scents that were meant just to be winter scents, and they just sold so well, and people kept asking them that they became an all year scent. So, you're allowed to change your mind.
Hello, my friend. Are you ready to level up your candle business? I've put together an ebook called 10 Proven Strategies to Scale Your Candle Business. And the best part, the ebook is completely free. So whether you're just starting out or looking to boost your existing business, the strategies and tips in this 9-page ebook will help you attract more customers, increase your revenue, and grow with confidence. Check out the link in the show notes to download your copy. How do you educate your community about either the new products that you're offering or how to use the new products that you're offering?
The room sprays, I think, are the best example for that, because we tell people every time they're inquiring about them that they only need 1 to 2 sprays, and depending on the size of the room, maybe not even more than 1 spray, and somehow nobody listens. We had a girl just recently, and it was rather amusing to hear, but she was coming back for a refill for said room spray, and she was telling us how she didn't listen, and she sprayed it 5 times in just her bedroom alone. And they're strong, they're overpowering at that level, and she learnt the hard way. But at the end of the day, that's, what we tell everyone when they're buying the room sprays. They're not designed for surface and skin contact. They're not designed for fabrics. In many cases, they might stain depending on the color of the fragrance, and they will become strong. So if you're spraying your sheets, you're going to be sleeping with it all night.
And I think it doesn't matter how much you try and educate people. Just like labels saying don't burn a candle for more than 4 hours. I've had people come up and say that they forgot it on overnight. So we can do our best, whether it be care cards, product labels, videos on Instagram, sometimes safety cards. It just sometimes doesn't the message doesn't come across.
What about you, Sue? What are your thoughts on educating your community?
Really, really important. And like Gina and George said, doesn't matter how much you put it out there, sometimes people don't listen. But for me, say with the reed diffusers, so I'll often, maybe once a month, do a silly video where I'm running around the house turning the sticks over and go, hey, reminder, have you turned your sticks today? So those sort of things, I do them. I do a lot of wick cutters. I do a lot of videos of those, and I constantly post things like that all the time. And when I'm actually selling the candles, particularly the candles at market, if it's a wooden wick or a tubular wooden wick, I do say it's really important you must trim your wicks. If you are burning your candle and you haven't trimmed your wick, you get a bigger flame. I said that's where you waste your product, and it also becomes a little bit of a fire hazard. So especially if somebody at market seems a little bit, they're not quite sure. So I do all the time say my first tip is make sure you trim your wicks. But then you go the opposite way of people who burn their candles for 4 hours or 5 hours or overnight. You get the people that burn them for 15 minutes. I've had customers that come back and say, I don't think my candle's burning right. And I have a look at it. I can see it's tunneling, and I'll say, well, how are you burning it? Well, I just burn it for 15 minutes before my friends come over, and then I blow it out. Well, so then you go back through the whole eye test for 3 hours, and, so just constantly on repeat all the time, whether it's social media, whether it's on your emails, whether it's on your warning tags and things like that. It's just constant.
It's one of those topics or one of those content pillars that you will have on repeat all the time, sharing on socials or sharing on email, like you say, Sue. And it's funny because so many people I speak to, candle makers, because candle makers are the only people I speak to. I don't know what to put on my socials. I don't know what to share. I don't know how to, keep coming up with new ideas. And it's like, come back to your education, come back to sharing how to take care of your products, how to get the most life out of them. So that's something that you will always repeat yourself on, but it's so important because people need that drummed into them to make sure that they're using their products so they get the best out of them. Compared to candles, what percentage of your sales is on these complementary or additional products?
I actually done a little bit of research today, and I cannot believe how much my sales have increased since I've bought in the reed diffusers. So I went through and done a calculation over the last 3 years of how many bottles I've bought, what I've sold, and it's been phenomenal. And sometimes when I'm having a slow day at market, I have the reed diffusers right at the front, so where everybody can smell them. So it's a draw in straight away. And sometimes I'll have people buy 3 reed diffusers, or they'll have someone sleep over and they'll have a reed diffuser in their spare room, so they'll send them to the market. So this person that doesn't even live in the area will come and buy them. The reed diffusers has been the best thing I have ever added to my range other than the candles. It just really keeps me afloat sometimes.
When I had my candle business, I could not move reed diffusers no matter what I did, how I tried, what scents they're, and they sat there looking pretty at the stand at the market, but people just, for my business and for my ideal customer, just wasn't a product for them. So it's interesting that you had the complete opposite experience.
I think our ideal customers are very similar to yours. We introduced reed diffusers after multiple people are asking for them, and they haven't quite gone like we thought they would. They are still getting sales. We only introduced them back in November,
January.
December. Yeah, it was.
Early days, though.
But for us, our room sprays were very similar in terms of when we introduced them in April last year. They did take a little bit, but George is the numbers man. So
It's also, we haven't exactly put them at the forefront. So we do have empty display reed diffusers on the display for the purpose of giving the idea we have them. We haven't, because we've got them in most fragrances now, we haven't gotten a solution to the idea of putting them on display so people can smell. So
without them being messy in transport.
As well as for people when they stick them straight up to their face, because that's the first thing everyone wants to do with a reed diffuser. From a calculations point of view, I think we're roughly 60% candles still, and the other 40 is a mixture of the room sprays, the reed diffusers, and the wax melts. The room sprays, however, they haven't been in the range as long, and we haven't had all of the fragrances available as long as we have the candles. So they're an up-and-comer in terms of they'll probably catch up to be almost, I'm going to say 40% of our sales alone over the next 12 or so months.
But then each event changes what sells as well. During summer, the room sprays have been more popular and the reed diffusers, whereas during winter, the wax melts and the candles can do better. So it can be seasonal as well.
When I take the reed diffusers to market, mine have a little plastic lug. So I just have I think I've got about 8 or 9 now, and I just take them to market with the little plastic lug in, and I put one stick in. Just one stick. I turn it over a couple of times. So when people come along to smell, I'll say, pick up the stick and smell the stick. And then if I have a new smell, a new reed diffuser, I will put that somewhere in the display, but with 10 sticks. And I can almost guarantee people will go, oh my goodness, and then I'll pick up the one with 10 sticks and they'll smell that. And then they'll pick up the single stick. And that seems to work really effectively. So whenever I have a new scent, I'll put one reed diffuser with the 10 sticks somewhere on the display so they can pick it up and smell the whole thing and then go pick up a single stick out of the display.
And how do you transport your sticks, Sue? Because for us, I don't want to sit there in an individual bag or 33 fragrances.
Yeah. As I say, I only have about 9. I've actually just discovered a box. I have because I do the whole vintage thing, I have a patty cake holder, and the bottles just fit neatly into that. So I have the 9 of them around this beautiful little vintage patty cake holder, and it goes into a plastic box. So the one stick doesn't have to come out at all. So it just stays. I get to market, I take it out of the box, I put it on the display, I finish, I put it back in the box, I put the lid on it, and it comes home. So that's the joy of only having a few. But yes, I could understand that.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Love that. All these extra tips within the episodes that people can discover as they listen. I love that. Now, this one's kind of obvious, but I want to ask it just so it really is drilled into the listeners' minds. How important is customer feedback when deciding on which products to bring in?
They're very important. I probably find a scent I like or someone suggests it, then I take it to market. I make it at a limited amount, and if it doesn't sell, I don't keep making it. And if I get good feedback, I love that smell, then I'll keep making it. Or if it keeps selling, that's probably the only sort of market research that I do, I suppose, for me.
Same for us. So we definitely listen to customers' requests when it comes to fragrances. That's how we've grown our range to be so big, which now we need to cull some. We will look at not so much the feedback that we get at the time, but our figures for the last 3 months of that particular fragrance. And then it's like, okay, do we put it to the side and maybe re-release it or introduce it as a winter fragrance? Goes back to how everybody was asking us for reed diffusers, but they have been slow. They are gaining traction slowly, but when it comes to people requesting things, we do tend to look at it does still need to fit within our aesthetics and our fragrance types. So we have quite a few different ones, but if we're not 100% happy with the fragrance, we're not going to introduce it just to please people, because then it won't be authentic. It's not us.
Well, one particular fragrance, as an example, is lavender.
Yeah.
We've been asked probably 1,000,000 times, and we're yet to find a lavender fragrance we're satisfied with, so we're not going to introduce it until we are.
A lot of integrity that comes behind a decision like that, a little confidence, because it's so easy to hear one customer or one person hasn't even purchased yet to say, I want this scent, or I would love, or this is my favorite fragrance. And then you go away, you buy all the supplies, you buy all the equipment, you buy everything, you bring it to market or you put it online, and it doesn't sell because only one person was asking for it. I think what's really clever with what the three of you do is that you're waiting to hear the same requests over and over. You're taking that as a majority rules as opposed to a singular decision. That's not to say that requests from single customers aren't important, but from a business perspective, and obviously, again, in today's economy, we don't have lots of money just to spend willy-nilly. We want to make sure that we're making the most strategic decisions. And I think when you listen to your customers, but also listen to yourself in that process, as I said before, there's a lot of integrity behind that.
I've got a side example of the complete opposite of that, actually. We got asked one time by one person for a particular fragrance, and we decided to try it in the lineup as well. And it's stayed there now because it's actually done really well, courtesy of that one person wanting it. So
well, there you go.
Work in the other way. It was just it wasn't intended. We thought we'd try it, and ever since then, it's definitely played its part. It can also work the other way.
That's right. I found that too. Like, I started with my favourite 10 cents to start off with, and then people would ask me for a scent. So I would maybe buy a 500ml bottle and try it. If it's popular, you can buy the 2.5, and then you can go up to the 10. Once you're up to the 10, then you start blending it with another fragrance. So you're not putting out more money, you're just working with what you've got. And with lavender and lang lang, I'd blend it with maybe a little bit of amber or something to see if you like it any better.
Oh, another hot tip.
Taking that on.
Yeah, taking that on.
I really don't like lavender either, but I've recently blended it with an amber and oak, and it's actually given it a little bit more of an earthy smell rather than that sharp lavender smell. I quite like it.
Gina's eyes are sparkling with wonder, and I'm going to try that. All right, before we wrap up tonight's episode, I've got a few more questions about the mistakes we've made and the lessons we've learned when we bring out new products. Is there anything that you would do differently? Anything that I wouldn't say regret, because I don't think anything is a regret. You're constantly learning from every decision that you make. But is there anything that you would do differently in regards to expanding your product line?
I don't think so.
No, I don't. I've tried to rub this off onto George. No regret. So like you said, Kirsty, everything is learning. Test and measure. We went through the natural fragrance range that we had launched, and they were doing okay. And now we still have some, because we've stopped that range. We've still got a bunch of fragrance and a bunch of candles that we're discounting. It was a learning lesson. What we originally wanted to go for didn't work as well as what we thought it would. The figures showed us that. It's test and measure. No regrets at all.
It's also at the time when people are looking at it going, oh, that's amazing, you've got natural fragrances, and then they smell them like, oh, they're wick. So that was another example as to why they migrated to the scented range. And ever since then, it's just kind of been like, we're going to stick with that until we find a range that works for the natural aspect.
But no regrets, just learning.
What about you, Sue? Anything that you wish you'd done differently?
I like the way I've progressed, but there are things I've done that I wouldn't do again. I did do a range of massage candles, and they were nice, but they were quite expensive to make. And you could only, in our hot climate, you could only really make them in winter. So I haven't bought them back again. Probably when I started, like everybody that's excited about candle making, I've done weird things, different colours, different angles, the pouring of the wax and all that sort of stuff. And that was okay because I wasn't a big thing. I just done a market occasionally. So I sort of got an idea for what would sell. And so, yes, I would agree. No regrets, just testing, seeing what sells, what doesn't. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's move on. Even with jars, I've had jars and I thought they were spectacular, but nobody else liked them. So, okay, you're not buying them again, Sue.
What advice would you give to the candle makers listening who are considering expanding their range?
I'd say go with reed diffusers. They're so quick and easy. They're great. I love them.
So I think from my point of view, I'd say go for the room sprays. It is a lot quicker and easier. And we're now semi-automated on those, so definitely helps.
And I'm going to meet you both in the middle and say, go with what your heart's telling you to, or your brain,
Or your
whichever one you
customers.
use, or your customers.
Yes, go with what your customers are asking for would be my advice. But also do what makes you happy, because the more love that you pour into your products, the more likely that you'll be able to sell them, because you'll be able to talk about them with passion. If you're doing something because you've done your research, you've done your market research with your customers or potential customers or audience community, and then you're excited to bring out a new range, all you can do is, like Gina said, test and measure and just give it a go and see how it turns out for you.
And I just want to add something very quickly to that is I think we went for the room sprays because we like being different. We don't look at what anyone else does. We don't go with comparisonitis. I don't know what the stand down from me at the market has on their display. We like to go for different. Go with what is calling you and what you're passionate about.
Absolutely. And the last question for tonight is, are there any new products that you guys are going to bring out soon that we can get excited about?
A handful of new fragrances that I know of.
I feel like there is, but I don't remember.
Or
right
is it
now.
all top secret until launch day?
We've discussed a bunch of other products probably close to 9 or 10 months ago now, of which we still haven't started on, but they've been talked about along the way.
We are currently testing.
Wow. For those that are listening, which is everybody,
It's a
much bigger size, beautiful centerpiece type of jar. Gorgeous.
That's in the process of testing 1.5 kilo candle.
Yes.
That's a big candle.
Will that be
It
made
is.
to order, considering you do have so many different fragrances?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to keep our top 5 fragrances in that size, and then any other fragrance would be made to order with a lead time of a month.
Purely for setting and sorting and fixing, and at the same time sorting out a way to send it to them if we are posting.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. 'Cause it's much
But-
heavier than a smaller candle.
it is.
It also doesn't come with a lid, and it is a wax that doesn't like temperature. So shipping is going to be interesting, to
I
say
look
the least.
forward to hearing and seeing how that goes in the next 6 months.
I'm pretty sure we poured that last May.
I think that was
Oh, wow. Well, it must be definitely cured by now.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a matter of week placement, testing, and then trying all the other fragrances that we've got ready to go for that.
Yes, 100%. Because that's a lot of wax and fragrance oil that you're testing. So you want to get it right. What about you, Sue? Any exciting new products or fragrances coming?
Well, obviously the cat's out of the bag. I am playing around with room sprays. Every now and again I dabble with soap, because a lot of people will pick up the melts because they're wrapped in paper and say, are these soaps? So I have dabbled with soap, but I think it's hard work.
It's a
I'm not
whole
sure.
nother
It's a
category
whole-
of products.
Yes, that's right. So if I ever do bring in a soap, it will be down the track. It's not something that I think is going to be a big part of the business, but I definitely like a room spray, and I have been playing around with bubble bath. I've had that to market, but I don't think I have the setup at market perfected. I think people overlook it currently. I need to work on how I'm displaying it at market. I think that could be a big part of what's holding it back, because people come along and they're looking at candles. I need to work on how I set that up. So it's not a new product, but it's one that hasn't taken off yet.
I look forward to hearing how that goes in the next 6 months as well. Now, guys, is there anything else that you want to share, anything that we haven't covered when it comes to expanding into different products?
Don't rush. Bring it in, like we said, that 1.4, 1.6 kilo candle we poured definitely way more than 6 months ago, and we've started the testing process. We just haven't had the time. So we're definitely not going to bring a product to market that is not tested properly. Go with what your heart wants to bring in and what you're passionate about, and don't rush.
And lastly, Sue, to round us out.
Take your time. Don't put pressure on yourself, and do it in small amounts. Don't go out and buy 3 cartons of jars. If you are bringing in a new jar, just start small, regardless of whether it's a candle or a room diffuser. Start small and gauge whether people like it or not. So that would be my advice. Take your time and don't go in big.
So, Gina and George, thank you so much for being on another amazing episode on the Candle Business Coach podcast, Candle Maker Connections series. I appreciate you all, and I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, my friend, for listening to this episode. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout the conversation, and please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're feeling inspired, I would love it if you would write a review for the podcast and give a 5-star rating. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful day.